Kirsten, thank you for joining me. Rocking the free agent hat here, so I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit about your background and then kind of what you started here with free agent and what the ultimate goal is with it. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Joe.
Yeah, definitely. So I'd love just to start by asking you a little bit about your hockey career and just growing up and kind of some of those early experiences that paved the way to get to the point where you are right now, specifically with hockey. So
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I do have to credit one of my brothers, or both of my brothers and my dad, for having me on skates as soon as I could walk. My best friend and worst enemy growing up was my brother. He's close to me in age. Him and I competed harder than I think any two siblings anywhere did. He taught me what full contact on grass means when you're playing road hockey, street hockey. So for lack of a better way of putting it, I got my ass whooped by my brother quite frequently. And I think that created a level of compete in me that I've carried through sport and through business. But I started playing hockey very young in a small town. That small town didn't have a girls' team, so I grew up playing with the boys till I was about 16. Then I went to, I played my first year of girls hockey and ended up going to Notre Dame in Saskatchewan. Notre Dame, for those who don't know, is a hockey school. It's a Catholic boarding school founded by Father Athol Murray. So it's an interesting place, to say the least. It's in the middle of nowhere in a town called Wilcox, and lots of hockey players end up going there, knowing someone that goes there at some point. So it was quite the experience. And then from there, I got a scholarship to the University of Alberta, and I played on the women's hockey team for 3 seasons before transferring to UBC and closing my collegiate playing years out there. And that's close to hometown for me. I grew up in a town called Aldergrove, and that's about 45 to an hour outside of Vancouver. So it was nice to be able to play at home in front of friends and family, have that opportunity. I didn't typically have that opportunity very often. And, I think I credit some of the decisions of moving home to my friends, my family were here, but also my job was here. I started working for a logistics company when I was very young, right place, right time, got an opportunity to work in a data entry role that eventually evolved into having real hands-on experience in building and growing a startup. And so that's kind of where my entrepreneurial journey started, but not super glamorous. The journey really early days involved like stacking pallets of fish and, doing the not so glamorous work. And, it teaches you, I think, not that I own the business, but, in that environment, there are jobs that need to be done. And with, a limited number of people on the team, it typically means everyone has to pull their weight. And so reminds me of all of the teams that I've played on in the past, right? And it doesn't matter if we're using sports references. It doesn't matter if you're on the first line or the third or fourth line. You got a job to do, and someone's got to get the job done. And so that's kind of the mentality that I've had through startups. And I've never been someone who's afraid to do the dirty work. In fact, I think that's, majority of my work that I do now. We do the non-glamorous things, and I think that's what makes an early startup founder successful.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, I mean, going back to getting beat up by your brother, I feel like it's a lot of those early experiences as a child that kind of lay the foundation, right, for some of that work ethic. And at this point, I don't know. I mean, it takes guts to start your own thing, right? I mean, I don't know. You have to be a little bit, the most respectful. You got to be a little bit crazy, right? Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, I appreciate you giving some of that background, that the hockey story. I would love to just hear, like, so you said there was a logistics company, and then you had a recruiting company too, if I'm not mistaken. Okay.
Yeah, still do. So
you still do? Okay.
I started that company when I was 25. And it really, wasn't necessarily a lot of entrepreneurs and folks who have aspirations to be entrepreneurs. They they're trying to come up with an idea constantly. Like, what's the winning idea? What's the game-changing idea? And, for me, and when I started my first company, it wasn't necessarily coming up with a game-changing idea. It was just understanding and realizing that I had a niche, and that niche is a service that I offered, and it's kind of organically turned into a business. And so I always say, I didn't wake up one morning and dream to start a recruitment agency. I didn't by any means think that I would end up in that space. But for me, again, entrepreneurs being a little crazy, I spent a lot of time listening and learning and understanding that space. Of course, in order to operate a business successfully, you have to really, really understand it. You have to be able to listen to candidates and listen to companies and what they need, and see the evolution of the industry and the space change. And so that's kind of, I think, where it gave birth to Free Agent. I think there was a combination of things that made me realize that this is a big opportunity. And one is, the recruitment industry has remained stagnant for such a long period of time. And we've had technological transformation in so many different spaces. But this is an industry that costs of service are incredibly high. And it is a very saturated space as far as how many recruitment agencies and options you have as a company when you're staffing your team. And so that creates a very competitive market. And that also creates this space where you have some firms that are charging, very high prices, and some firms that are, hey, I'll do it for $12.99 special. And so it's really, really tough to maintain consistent loyalty as far as business goes. And it has become really just a referral game. And so that can be difficult when you're a smaller firm. And so my team, I think at our peak, we were, 12 to 15 people. And that was, post printing of all the money, the COVID situation. But it really, I think, for me, I've always been, as I mentioned earlier, I've always been someone who's had my head down, and I'm doing the work. I get a little bit worried about the day when I might just have to be a CEO that's not, grinding in the corners, so to speak, with the team. And I don't think that I'm built for that. Just sitting at the top and making decisions. I like to be in the game all the time. But anyways, back to the conversation about recruiting. The industry has become difficult to maintain a business. And I think a key part of that is the tools that are available and the resources that are available for these recruitment firms and for these companies that are staffing are extremely expensive. And there is just one big giant that we can think of, and that is LinkedIn. And I've for many years said, if LinkedIn, for whatever reason, was to go out of business, and my company would go out of business. And that's really problematic. And identifying that is the easy thing to do. But then, what next? What is someone going to do about this? LinkedIn is the only business that can constantly raise their prices, or even not even tell you what they're going to charge, and you just get the credit card receipt and say, how did this happen? So that kind of, gave birth to the idea of Free Agent. And so it's not just about, I think it's really easy to look at the business and say, well, this is a business model that supports athletes, and that's the value proposition. But really, for someone like me, someone who's spent so much time in this recruitment space, the value proposition is very much in the efficiency, effectiveness of the tools that we're building, as well as the cost, the price point.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's an interesting point about LinkedIn, because I mean, in the past, yeah, have searched for jobs, but you almost don't even really know where to start. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, everything's on there, but LinkedIn's also just become this. It's kind of like Instagram at this point, where it's just a highlight reel and people posting things that have nothing to do with work. It's kind of bizarre. It's really strange. But so then what is Free Agent trying to solve then? I mean, what specifically Like how what's the main differentiator then between LinkedIn and free agent?
Yeah, the market. The market's the main differentiator. The users that are on the platform have to have played at least 1 year of collegiate, pro, or Olympic level sport. And I'm not trying to introduce a new concept to people that athletes make, decent hires. That is something that's known throughout the market and the ecosystem already. Everyone has assumptions. Some people who have played sport make assumptions that, someone who has similar experiences than them, I think it boils down to the discipline, right? Athletes are unique species that have demonstrated an incredible amount of discipline over a period of time. They've done things that they don't want to do. And then also, I mean, depending on a team sport or an individual sport, there are different characteristics that are valuable that come out of those sports. And I could sit here and list a lot of them. But ultimately, these are traits and qualities that employers already value. And so I'm not necessarily, it's not a new idea I'm going to market with as far as, this is a really quality group of people that deserve a chance. It's just granting access. And I think one thing that I'll always come back to and say is athletes are typically very proud. There are people who don't like asking for help, and I can speak for myself to a fault sometimes, right? And they take a lot on, but I think that knowing that and understanding that that's typically how athletes operate inherently, creating a platform like this where we can provide opportunities, and not just any opportunity. We want to give athletes access to the best available, and so much of what we're building is so different than LinkedIn, in that we're building a real verified network, a secure network, and a network where you really kind of have to meet the standard of an athlete, someone who's competed at the highest level. And an example being the vendors and the partners that we work with. We have an expectation that they are the best in the market at whatever it is that they do. And if we put it in front of an athlete, it's now free agent. It's our responsibility to ensure that. And so that is much different than LinkedIn, because I think, as you mentioned, LinkedIn's kind of turned into a bit of a jungle as far as the content that's being posted, the fake jobs, the resources that are available. And so, and I think on the hiring side, it's a whole other conversation that I'm sure I'll get into. But I think the major difference is being free agent is really reserved for an exclusive group, and there's a certain standard that has to be met on both the athlete, the company, the vendor, the partner side, and then future, of course, advertisements.
Got it. Yeah, makes sense. So I want to ask you a few things on that actually, but first I just wanted to backtrack for a second and almost ask you, like, what did you do to take this from the idea that you had into actually making it a thing, like in actually making it a tangible business company where you have I think you have a few employees at this point, right? That are working with you, but like what were those steps like? If you could explain that a little bit.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I would say this to anyone who has, again, aspirations of starting a business. First of all, this isn't my first business, and I think the first time that I started a business, self-doubt creeps in, and it's you don't realize how hard it's going to be, right? And I think I always use the example of laying awake at night, being concerned or worried. It's not about me being able to pay my bills. It's now these, people on payroll, and you're concerned. They have a family to feed, and it's an added level of responsibility. I think that not everyone is cut out for. The pressure of being a business owner is similar to the pressure that you feel as an athlete. And so I think for me, starting my first business, I think I recognized that the only person that was going to get in my way was me. And so as I've moved on to the second business now, it's that same mentality, but I'm a little bit more comfortable, right? There's a lot of things that I've experienced already, and especially, the line of work that I was in with my first business. I've worked with hundreds of founders very, very closely and supported in everything, like, their venture raise to, staffing up the team and then scaling the team back, unfortunately. And that's just over the last 5 years, kind of the nature of the economy. But I've seen a lot over the years in working so closely with founders, companies that have been really, really successful and companies that barely lasted a year. And so having the opportunity to see that so closely for so long, I've gathered just a little list in my head of things that you should do and things that you shouldn't do. And most particularly, I always say this to my team, but I think we can all agree that we've learned more from the shitty bosses that we've had than the good bosses that we've had, right? And those are the ones that typically stick with us longer. And so I think being able to see all of the mistakes that founders and teams have made in so many areas, I feel much more confident now that I won't make those same mistakes. And so, again, that's probably the long-winded answer, but I think the only thing that gets in someone's way of doing something that they want is them. And there's a few things that we're not allowed to say on our team internally, and these are just phrases that really just grind my gears. I don't know why. It's a non-athlete thing to say, but I'm at capacity. I don't have bandwidth. That's impossible. We can't do it. These are things that I actually hear nails on a chalkboard when someone says those things out loud, because I'm so much under the impression and mentality that we can do whatever the fuck we want. If we really set our mind to it, we can do it. So don't get in your own way and don't get in my way.
I'm not messing with you. So, yeah, that's really, really true. Like, there's something I've heard people say, and you see it on Twitter and everything. It's like, you can just do things, like you can really, I don't know. I mean, it sounds kind of stupid, but it's true. It's like, you can literally just try different things, experiment with different things. I don't know. That's what I try to do with this podcast a little bit. It's like, I wanted to meet other people. I was working from home, and I'm like, all right, I listen to a ton of podcasts. I should just start one. So, but now it's like, all right, what's the next thing to come from that? I mean, it's one thing to start it, but then sure, you can totally relate. It's like, all right, you can start Free Agent, but you want to be the best athlete platform there is, right? So,
it's kind of like it's kind of like when you set your New Year's resolution, you're like, I'm gonna get super fit this year, and I'm gonna drop 10 pounds, and I'm gonna be lean muscle mass. But if you don't tell anyone that you're doing it, it's kind of like you're not holding yourself accountable. So when I had the idea to create Free Agent, I thought, you know what? Let's just tell people that we're gonna do it, and then we're stuck. Like, we have to do it. We're trapped into I'm totally kidding, but it does feel like that. I would agree. We've spent a year building and really refining the product and the brand and the mission, and now we're at the point where this needs to be a really, really, really impactful product, and this needs to make a hell of a difference in this space for athletes and for companies. And so I have no doubt in my mind. That that's what we will achieve. It's just it's a momentum game. It's a timing game. And so it's just figuring out the right opportunities to do what and launch which features. And so that's kind of where we're at. But I think it's something that a lot of people should look forward to, because we have a very committed, dedicated team behind it that is in it for all the right reasons.
Yeah, love it. That's awesome. So it's in the beta phase right now, right?
Beta phase.
Yeah. So what does that mean? Just that the people are testing it out, and then at what point do you officially launch it? When's it go live?
I love that you asked this question. When you build a tech product, unfortunately, not often you can build the product perfectly rather, and take it to market and release it to market with all of the features that you want, all of the customers, all of the users. And so you can consider a beta launch like a soft launch, right? It's an opportunity for us to collect feedback. We're more so a controlled launch. So the way that we've marketed our product over the last 12 months, we've been very conservative as far as, we're not putting advertisements up in New York City. We're really just focused on a small user base to launch the beta, and we want that user base to feel very connected to the platform and connected to the community so that they're comfortable enough to share feedback with us. I think most founders know that listening to your customers and your users is simply one of the best things that you can do really early on. And lots of companies that launch products end up doing a complete pivot because they've listened to their user base and they've figured out and identified early on what the problems are. And so we're really prepared to keep it quite. I don't want to kick myself later on for saying this. We're going to launch to a small group because our soft launch beta crew is already not small. There are a lot of users, much more than we anticipated, and it just goes to show that people are quite excited. But our beta launch will be inclusive of our MVP. So that's our minimum viable product. So the minimum product that we're putting to market that we feel comfortable with internally. And then over the next 6 to 12 months, we're going to be adding on our kind of main features and features that are ultimately part of the what we would call the alpha launch, which is the main launch of the product that we're really comfortable with. And then, of course, when you build a tech product and you are listening to feedback and you're starting to see the data and the analytics and the engagement, see what's working, what's not working, that's when you start to make changes, right? And so it's an ongoing process, but boy, are we ready to launch. And I think, I'm not sure the timing of when this is going to come out, but I anticipate it'll probably come out immediately following.
All right. Love it. People, former athletes, get ready to go. So what does it look like then, like practically speaking, for an athlete? Like, say, I don't know, I'll just give you my situation. So I'm graduate playing college baseball. I'm looking for a job. I don't know what kind of, not really sure what industry to go into, that type of thing. And then, I ended up just taking a job and, figuring out. But like that athlete that is maybe just graduating from college, what's their interaction with free agent? Like, what do they do and how do they go on and get the most out of it?
Yeah, if you just graduated from college, I would anticipate one of your top priorities is growing your professional network. And so that is really simply the biggest and best thing you can do on the free agent platform is go in and connect with other baseball players, alumni. What was the university you went to, Joe?
Seton Hall University.
Okay. And so I anticipate there's probably quite a large baseball alumni program. And so this would be an opportunity for you to connect with guys that played, 20, 30 years ago. And I would imagine, being athletes, ex-athletes, and educated athletes, they probably have some of them have a presence in the space that you might want to get into. But so that's the first thing, is your network. The second thing is, you mentioned you're not quite sure what you want to do. So our platform offers career assessments, which means you can take an assessment and you can, it's based on 1,000 data points, behavioral traits. And basically that assessment will tell you if you scored in a certain spot, someone who scored similar to you in that spot, basically the careers that they're successful in and the ones you should probably stay away from. So interestingly enough for you, can I ask what role you ended up in after university?
So I ended up working for a big insurance company. Then I still do work for a big insurance, kind of like the retirement industry. I would categorize it as sales / sales support, but I've also done a few other things. Like I coached alongside of that, which sometimes coaching took up more time than actually my job. But yeah, so that's a quick answer for you.
I would have guessed, I think, that you would have ended up in a some form of a sales role post sport, and that's just that simply because 3 out of 4 do end up in a sales role. And so, if that's the case, Joe, and you're looking at sales roles, and your assessment says, "Hey, you should probably be in a sales role," we offer sales training, an entire curriculum. We partnered with a company that we feel very confident is the top sales training company in North America. And so again, when we talk about a verified network for athletes, we want to be able to offer athletes the best. So instead of Joe going, right from college, very small professional network, no idea what he wants to do, no training in the area or in the specific area that he wants to focus in. Joe now has the opportunity to grow a network, to make connections, connect with past alumni, connect with, baseball players from other schools, take a career assessment, identify that you should end up in a sales role, a front-facing role, and then lastly, get that actual hands-on training. Now, one thing that we're missing in this process is free agent will actually give you access to jobs with companies that truly value hiring athletes. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop. You got everything that you need. And not to say that we need to spoon feed athletes everything, because that's not the case at all. I think really there's still a lot of hard work on the athlete end, right? It's not a matter of you show up and you get everything you want, right? You gotta put time in. You gotta take the career assessment. You gotta meet with a career development coach. You gotta start taking the courses. You gotta sit in the courses. You gotta build your resume effectively. And so it's still putting in the work. It's just speeding that process up. And so many athletes, especially at the professional and Olympic level, they get stuck in these loops. And I talked about being very proud. They get stuck in these loops of public speaking, and then a quick side hustle, and public speaking and a quick side hustle. And it's not because they don't necessarily know what they want to do. It's just that they don't have access to that opportunity. It's not right in front of them. And then it burns, years of their life. And these are very high performers, and time should not be wasted for these individuals, especially if you're a company that could use that talent. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's so true, because it's like it's kind of what goes back to the LinkedIn conversation. It's like, yeah, I might have an idea of what I want to do, but then where do I go from there? It's almost just so much information where you're just like, all right, and then it just comes to inaction. At that point, it's inaction, which is probably the worst thing you can do, is just stay still and just keep doing the same stuff over and over again. So yeah, well, I think it's awesome. I think it's a really cool platform. And I think I told you in the first call, I've had ideas of like trying to do something similar to this, but I don't know. I've never started my own company before this. So I started a podcast instead, and then we'll see what we'll see what comes from that. But well, Kirsten, thanks. What's like the biggest thing you've taken away from this so far? Like the biggest thing you've learned to this point building this company?
Oh goodness, I've learned a lot. I learn every single day. Every single call that I have with any athlete, and just by the way, over the last 12 months, it's our first birthday on April 29th. So we've been at this for almost an entire year, and the amount of people that are supportive, I think, I didn't prepare, and I don't really know how this is going to come out.
Yeah.
No worries. It's a great question. If you wore the jersey, if you wore the cleats, if you wore the skates, if you, held the racket or the bat, you kicked the ball, it's a different energy in the room, especially when you're talking about the opportunity. You think about a team that comes together, it's training camp, it's your first day, you've got this brand new team, and you come together and you set goals together to build and to get to the championship and to win. it's every time that I'm in a room with an athlete, it feels like that. That's the energy. Like we're coming and we're collaborating and we're building and we're working towards a goal. And it doesn't matter if they're, if they're internally on the team. It's just, this has been building Free Agent has made me realize tenfold how powerful this community is going to be, and the amount of shit that we're going to do together, and the impact and the difference that we're going to make together. I said this at a conference last week, but this really is more than just a tech platform. It is a movement. We're building a movement, and this movement is going to be so community oriented. So I really look forward, if I could fast forward 5 or 6 years, which I don't want to, because I want to live in the moment and soak in every second. But I do feel that this is going to be something that I can be really, really proud of for a very long time.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, the reason why you started it is because it was personal to you too, right? Like this is something that you probably could have used at some point. You're around a bunch of athletes or former athletes that are looking for something like this. So it's probably a huge reason why you'll be successful with it too. So it's very cool.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Have you signed up yet, by the way? Are you on the wait list?
I thought I was. If not, I will right after this. Can you, maybe just direct folks if they're curious to hear more about you or Free Agent, just where they can find it. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, well, if you're an ex-collegiate pro or Olympic level athlete, you can find me on the Free Agent platform. We launch the week of April 29th, and it's our beta launch, which means that you can join, build a profile, engage with companies on the job board. You can build your network. You can do some of the fun stuff that we offer. But if you are not an athlete and you want to have a conversation, which of course I welcome, I don't discriminate. In fact, I feel like I'm starting to be a little bit more in this little bubble, and I'm sometimes trying to get out of it.
I know. Yeah. I did want to, if you don't, just ask about that, because it's like it's almost like you identify as an athlete and then you identify as a former athlete. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, the bubble you're talking about, where most people are not former athletes. So you have to, I don't know, you don't want to put yourself in this box that.
Yeah, it's a very small percentage of the population that is actually eligible to be on the platform. And now, one thing that I really, really don't want is, I don't want to be. It's not as much that we're building a community that thinks that they're better than everyone else. It's really just building a support system for a community that has a lot of potential, but that doesn't typically have access to those resources. And so that's really kind of ultimately what we're doing. Now, it just so happens that the data that is available shows that athletes have become, who are very high performers in sport, become very, very high performers in business. But it really, I think there's going to be some tough times, I think, and tough lessons learned just in that. And one thing that we really want to ensure, and when I talk about the community and the power in the community, we really want to ensure that at the height of everything and the height of all values, respect is number one, and that the community can respect themselves and each other, and then of course everyone that is not a member of the community. And that's the only way that we're going to be successful together.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. And I think even just you saying that, I mean, you're just like anybody else who's out there trying to build a company, whether you've played a sport or not. It's just that's the community that you're trying to build, and that population that you're trying to help. So I think it's relatable for sure. But,
thank you, Joe.
All right, Chris. Well, thanks for your time. This was awesome. And we definitely encourage people to go check out the platform. Former athletes, I think it'll be great, and hopefully help people with some of that noise from LinkedIn. I feel like I'm bashing LinkedIn here, but LinkedIn's great. But it's a different kind of platform that can definitely help people. So
I really appreciate you having me on, Joe. It's good to chat with you.
Definitely.
Look forward to the next one.